Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow toasters, back to the channel. This is your host with the most, A.K.A. also known as Nelson. And before we get into the meat of this video, give me a second. I just want to give a quick disclaimer. But this one's going to be just slightly different. First of all, please, y'all, stay hydrated. All right, this is water, first of all, just so y'all know that. And secondly, like I've done in my past videos beforehand, I'm just going to let it be known that this video is going to be a little different than my typical ones. Because this one's going to be a bit of a rant, so to speak. And the subject matter that I'm going to rant about is going to be about the Star Wars franchise. And I definitely, before I go into it, I do want to give a special shout out to a good friend of mine, Peter, out there who gave me the idea, since as I'm recording this, it is the month of May. And I did miss May the 4th, okay? And that probably would have been a better time to do this, but hey, we're here now. So anyhow, and then on top of that, I was just rewatching Star Wars The Bad Batch, which I'm definitely excited to see where this franchise, or this branch of the franchise, is going to go off into as a series, because I definitely hope they're going to get plenty of seasons. Honestly, if I had to guess, I would probably say it can at least do 5 seasons. Honestly, they can do 5 seasons. But anyhow, that's not here nor there for this discussion. Or for more so for this rant a little bit. Because this rant is going to be more focused on, just as far as I'm concerned, if I may, just the current state of the franchise, the Star Wars franchise, from the perspective of a fan. Now, let me make something very clear. When I speak of being a fan, I'm not talking about being casual, but not to the extreme of, say, a full-on fanatic, because that's what fan means, fanatic. That's short for fanatic. So just to be clear, I want to make it clear that I'm not someone who, by all means, go and read every bit of lore. I'm not someone who reads all the comics, legends, by any stretch of your imagination, but I do enjoy the franchise. I do enjoy the storytelling. I do enjoy the characters. I do enjoy the world building, that I'm willing to, by all means, go in depth of the media. More so, again, in the realm of television, movies, the video games, if you will, in that regards. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my total strools out there, let's get into this particular bit of it. Because this is something I've shared with multiple people over the years. And honestly, y'all, I feel like I know I'm not the only one. And by all means, please share your thoughts and your opinions and down in the comment section down below. But honestly, for the state of Star Wars as a franchise, it's in a very weird place to me. Not in a bad way, in a good way, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Star Wars as it is right now, I say that they're definitely having a better time getting themselves, I think, in a better direction than they were with their movies. Now, let me say this, because we can all agree that, look, no matter what, hey, some people are going to enjoy certain movies, some people are not going to enjoy certain movies. Hey, everyone has their own taste buds. I understand that. Pardon me. But I think, typically speaking, it's nothing wrong with movies that can be polarizing. But then my issue becomes this, and I'm just going to talk about movies for a minute. And in fact, before I even touch on the movies, y'all, let me just give y'all a quick, excuse me, I'm going to readjust my pants here. Just give y'all a little background history with me when it comes to the franchise, or how I was introduced to the franchise. In my furthest memory that I can recall off the top of my head, just give me for a second, I want to say was with the original trilogy, but it was more so like in snippets. What I think really got me into Star Wars franchise, though, was the original, not the original trilogy, excuse me, but the prequel series. More so the Clone Wars. Because I saw Phantom, excuse me, y'all. I just crack myself up sometimes. But to go on, excuse me. for that mishap. For the Phantom Menace, I remember watching it, but I didn't really pay attention to it all the way through. But what really got me into the movies and more so into the franchise was Star Wars: The Clone Wars, or more specifically from the Clone Wars, the Clone Wars series, both the 2D and the 3D versions, not virgins, versions. Okay, and that what sparked my interest into the franchise. And so definitely, I looked forward to Rise of the Sith, and after that, I definitely was more interested in seeing, okay, what other medias has this franchise branched into besides movies or television shows? That got me into the video games, that got me into reading a little bit of, from the comics and what have you. Just a little bit, like online, you be watching videos, me breaking down certain panels and what have you. Stuff along that lines. And the thing is, before we got the new trilogy, and again, whether you love it or you hate it, I think that deep down, I think all of us wanted to see what the franchise could do going past the original trilogy. Because the prequel series is covering what happened before the original trilogy. Where the original trilogy ends, it ends on a note that, yes, you could kept it there, but I think there's so much more story left to be told if you go past that. And this is where we get into the crossroads, to me, y'all, that's making the franchise at this point in time just in a very weird place. Because as far as I'm personally concerned, the franchise right now, when it comes to its television series, The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, the final season for the Clone Wars, which was so excellent, just mwah. And I'm probably gonna cover that some down the road. But anyhow, it's like those series are so good and well thought, well put together. And again, hey, there's nothing wrong when you want to give your fair criticism to these shows. They're not perfect. But then it's like, if you put them in comparison to their movie counterparts to an extent, it's like, how is it? It is what, excuse me, y'all. This is what fucks with me when I think of the franchise right now. Because it's like, to me, and I understand that, of course, not everyone who's in charge of the movie department is in charge of the television series department necessarily. They probably exchange notes or what have you, but they're not the same people. I understand that. So I understand that, of course, the ways that the movies are done and how television series are done can be different. I understand that. But to me, I just don't understand why I don't personally, y'all, like, I would love to be the fly on the wall at these meetings, because I'm trying to figure out, how is it that your movies are lackluster, but then you excel so well in your your movies. And again, for some people may not, but you excel across the board. I'm pretty sure everyone can agree on this. Across the board with your television series, you do so well. And it's just, well, some, not all of them, but some of them, for the most part, all across the board, people love them. And it's just it's so weird to me that right now, I'm being honest with y'all, I really don't know where the franchise is going to go. I really don't. And I'm talking about in the future. My thing is, I'm definitely here to enjoy The Mandalorian, because what The Mandalorian is that, and this is what fucks me up with The Mandalorian, because let me start with that series. First of all, it took me a good long time before I watched the first season. And when I finally did get a chance to watch the first season, before I went on to the second season at a point in time when it was released, I definitely understood why people love this series so much and why they love the characters on there, especially ones coming from, again, Star Wars, the Clone Wars. And y'all know who I'm talking about, okay? And definitely also because this was so interesting about the series itself is that it's wanting to make those connections from the prequel series and the original trilogy series, that it feels as if it brings the best of both worlds, what these both of these trilogies brought to us. Again, whether if you love them or you hate them. And it's like, to me, knowing that in the back of my mind, with the new trilogy that was made, I personally can't help but watch an episode of The Mandalorian and just can't help but think to myself, as much as I'm enjoying it, a part of my brain can't help but register in my mind, like, you do know how this ultimately is going to end, right? And it's like I'm being straight about honest with y'all. Sometimes I have to fight myself from reminding myself that. Like, I really have to not shut my brain off necessarily, but I have to like neglect that part of my acknowledgement of the franchise as it is right now, to really feel like I can immerse in this and be like, oh man, what comes next? What comes next? What comes next? But then ultimately, I already know what's going to happen. Not with the series in itself, but the grander scheme of things, right? And of course, I think the best mentality when it comes to these series, as it stands right now, is just enjoy the journey. Don't focus so much on the destination. But that's what personally fucks with me is that, and this kind of like to sum up my whole issue when it comes to the state of the franchise as it stands right now is, I think all of us can agree that we want to enjoy the journey, but it does not make getting to the destination or already knowing what the destination is any more enjoyable. It's like, say, think of like this, right? When you watch the Clone Wars, the thing is, after you watch the Revenge of the Sith, you can do as much. You can put as many. You can make any kind of spin-off series within the Clone Wars if you want to, and I'm pretty sure most people would watch it. But then knowing that the end result is still always going to be the same, no matter where you are in the universe or in the galaxy, it's just going to be bittersweet. So it already feels as if you have a what's the word I'm thinking of? Oh, what's the word? What's the word? What's the word? Oh my goodness, it's on top of my head. What is it? You have a oh my goodness, what's the word? You have a pre predefined destination, essentially. That's already, yeah, you cannot change the course. You can take as many detours as you want, but you can't change the point in time which you're going to get to. And that's what the frustrating part to me, what I can't help when I'm watching these series, because I love to understand, okay, where could this story spin off to in the grander scheme of this galaxy? Like, for example, if you watch the last series, excuse me, y'all, the last season of the Clone Wars, and again, it's done wonderfully, you understand that at the end of the day, because it's getting so close, I'm being serious, y'all. If you go watch it, it's like, by the way, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who wants to go out and watch the Clone Wars, or if you haven't touched on the last season, I don't want to spoil it for y'all. But it's like the Clone Wars, the last season, is so close to the Revenge of the Sith. It's like, or you know what? It's more so like, I'm trying to give a quick analogy with my fingers, y'all. But it's like, say, if your finger hairs, if y'all can see right here, you know, the finger hair that's on your finger, it's like if they touched, but your fingers didn't touch, but your hair kind of touched. That's how close it is to me. And they did it in such a great way in that season that, again, not to spoil anything for anyone who wants to go check out the Bad Batch, but they well established in the first episode, and again, I'm going to cover the first episode sometime later on, but just give y'all a quick tidbit on it. It's like they go right into it. They don't try to stall it. They don't try to stretch it out. They get right into into the Revenge of the Sith. Actually, to be more specific, they do the aftermath. Ironically, the name of the episode, the aftermath of Revenge of the Sith. Excuse me, y'all. And again, it's like I want to see where this journey goes, but then I already know what the grand scheme of things is going to turn out to be, and that to me, to some extent, it takes away not my enjoyment of the series, or it doesn't take away my enjoyment for the show, but it takes away that enjoyment of acknowledging just the new possibilities it can veer off to for the grand scheme of things. Again, it always has a predefined destination already there. But overall, y'all, okay then, I'm not going too far in time, but I'm gonna try to close off on this. As far as I'm personally concerned, when it comes to the Star Wars franchise, for me personally, I would say, like, say if I want to give it a letter grade right now, overall, I would say I would give them. Now, it makes it clear what I'm about to say. Again, I'm including the movies, I'm including the television series, be it they're animated or not, currently as they are now. Not like in total, but I'm talking about the current. I'm taking consideration the movies. I'm taking consideration the series. I'm taking consideration the video games. I'm considering also the comics or different reading material out there too. I'm also taking consideration, I suppose, other forms of media that's out there, they exist within the franchise. And I would honestly say that for me personally, if I had to give a letter grade, if I had to, I would say that the franchise right now is a C plus. Overall, is a C plus. And the reason why I'm saying is a C plus, or I'll say this, an alternate grade I would give it would be a B minus. A C plus was, it's like, no, I put it like this, but it's like between a C plus and a B minus. And the reason why I'm giving those two particular letter grades is because in certain instances, if I was just to look at certain aspects for the franchise, I would give it that B minus. If I looked at it other retrospect to the other facets of the franchise that makes up the franchise, I would also say it would be a C minus, not C minus, excuse me, a C plus. And the reason why I want to say a C plus for me is because if you took everything in consideration, it's like, again, when this, like, I'll be honest with y'all, the series are what's, as far as I'm concerned, the series is what's saving the franchise. Everything else to me, it's like, again, it's so mixed matched. Or it's such a mixed bag of you don't really know what you're really gonna get. With the series, you know you're gonna get good shit. So it's like if you took the series and you were very lenient, I think you could give it that C plus. It can do better, but it's definitely, it has improved. Now, if you took just the series, to me, then you're gonna get that B plus. And the reason why I would say it would just get the B plus, not B plus, y'all, excuse me, the B minus, for me personally, if we just look at the series, is because, again, we already know what this ends up being. So you can't take that. Ultimately, you have to factor that in. And that's why it's like, as much as the series are elevating the franchise, ultimately, the main continuity as it is right now is what dims it down for me from it going any higher than it is. Now, what would make, I'll say this, y'all, and I'm going to end my thoughts on this. Now, what can bring the franchise from between a C plus and a B minus for me to an A to even, let's say, a S rating. What would save it for me as far as I'm concerned is this. I'm not going to say they have to pull a Marvel strategy in terms of have to make different phases necessarily. But I think at this point in time, I think most people can agree with me on this. And again, by all means, if you want to disagree with me, give me in the comment section, or you go ahead my Twitter, which will be there in the description box below. Anyhow, I'm not going to say they have to necessarily get rid of the concept of the trilogy, but I think at this point in time, I think to some extent they have worked on this, so they probably know what I'm talking about when we have Rogue One and we have Solo. I think at this point, the franchise, to some extent, I'm not going to say it has to get away from trilogies. I think at this point, it makes the most sense that they have to essentially evolve in terms of how they go forward with the franchise with the movies. Because to me, my thing is this. Like if you made a movie regarding to the Bad Batch and you want to make a live series, not a live series, excuse me, all, but a live movie adaptation, I would watch that shit perfectly fine. It could be his own isolated story. I would be perfectly fine with that. But let's say if you want to do more with that in the larger, the grand scheme of the franchise, again in the future now, establishing a set time period necessarily, but a chain of events, right? That's going to lead up to a grand finale for this particular part of the franchise. That to me, you could make that happen. But again, you have to come correctly. So this is personally, and again, if you disagree with me, please come in the comment section down below. Tell me your thoughts. I would love to hear y'all. But that's just me personally. At this point, for them to go any higher, I'll say this. When it comes to their television shows, be it, again, if it's live action or animated, they're doing well. Don't fuck it up. You're doing great. Okay? Again, fair criticism can be shared. That's fine. When it comes to their movies, again, step away from the trilogy notion for a minute. Put it on the back seat for a minute. Because I think the better way to improve the franchise in terms of for the movies is, and again, this is me saying just going forward, is again, take steps or take notes what Marvel has done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can have your Tony Stark, you can have your Iron Mans, you can have your Thors, you can have your Guardians of the Galaxies, you can have all these different movies or these different trilogies. You can even say that you can have all these different trilogies for different characters, but they are to a grander story that doesn't always have to be so tight-knitly fit into each other in every movie. Like, perfect example I'm going to say, like Rey, for example. You could have had Rey as a character involved in the franchise. You still could have had Rey, but to me, it would have made more sense for her character to be develop over a course of years, instead of in terms of the span of the timeline, in terms of in continuity in a few months. Why not spend her abilities of understanding the Force, how she comes to reconcile with, let's say, learning about her family history or seeking her family history? Like, imagine if they had paced that well enough. Instead of saying, oh, we need to find Luke, and I would say like this, by the end of the first movie within the trilogy, instead of being like, oh, we found Luke, now we're going to go find him, it's like, why not, because this is my thing, why not just essentially say, okay, this is the first step within a new trilogy, but before we get into the next step within that trilogy, we have these series of movies that's going to expand before we touch on the next entry into that franchise, or excuse me, next entry to the trilogy. To me, y'all, that would make the most sense. Again, you have time where you can flesh out all these characters in a way where you don't discard them so easily, or let's say when you discard them, they have a bigger impact to when they leave. You get what I'm saying? But anyhow, with all that being said, again, y'all, nevertheless, I definitely am looking forward to what they do with the franchise. Again, from this point, it can dip, it can go up. It's ultimately up to them. But of course, y'all, let's never be afraid to share our thoughts and opinions, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, I think regardless if you love Star Wars or any particular franchise, I think we can all agree to this. You want fans, or you want some level of competent fans within these offices. You want them in these kind of positions because they're not going to do us wrong. See, and again, I'm just going to use Marvel again as a quick reference point what I mean. Because if you look at Kevin Feige, it's like at this point, I trust that man with the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I trust him. I may not necessarily like every movie that's released within the MCU, but I tell you what though, what I do trust is that ultimately every movie has serves a grander purpose. Again, like Ant-Man. I loved Ant-Man. I ain't gonna front. I didn't even think I was gonna like Ant-Man that much, but I really ended up liking it a lot. I didn't like Ant-Man Wasp as much, but I understood it served a greater purpose. That's why when it's the lineups they have for Phase 4, I already can acknowledge, hey, I mean, I love every single movie, but I know for a fact it's going to culminate to something better as a whole. And to me, that's what they have to do with the franchise with the Star Wars. Make your money, boo-boo. Make your money. But while you're making that money, make this a franchise that's worth keeping around for my. Because here's my thing: I want the franchise to exist well when I'm gone. When I leave this earth, I want my grandchildren to look back and see what we built for them to continue to see, to be inspired. That's the fan within me who wants to see this franchise live past me. But guess what? That's not the mindset of everyone who's in those offices. But nevertheless, all that being said, please y'all tell me your thoughts. What would you give the letter grade for the state of the franchise as it stands right now? Would you care to give it one? Do you think it deserves one? If not, please tell me in the comment section down below, or anything that piques your interest. But with all that being said, y'all, excuse me if I'm getting a little too long-winded here. Give me a second. Okay. Now, with all that being said, as I got a good swig of water in me. Okay. Again, thank you for checking out the video. Give me a second. Thank you for checking out the video. Definitely hope you will go stick around to check out my future content or even my past content I have up right now. And definitely stay tuned if you possibly can. Post notifications. If you don't, you don't. That's perfectly fine. Subscribe. You don't want to subscribe. Cool. It is what it is. Like. You don't want to like. You know what to do. I'll catch y'all ladies yelling my toast strews out there. Next video. Peace. I love y'all. Oh, one more thing. Just let me know, again, be honest with me, how you feel about the Blazer. I personally enjoy the Blazer. And I probably have asked that question before, but I'm going to ask it again. Because if it's not working for some of y'all, I'm probably kind of taking it out. Not saying I'm going to throw it away, but probably reserve it maybe for other things. But if you guys kind of like it, by all means, I have no problem pulling it out on your whole asses. Not on your whole asses, but hey, some of y'all are some whole asses. Hey, the shoe fits. Shoe fits now. But anyhow, all that being said, I'm going to catch y'all later. Bye. And yes, I'm going to get a haircut. All right, y'all see all the snappy hair? I'm going to get a haircut, okay? Calm that ass down. You see? I cut myself, got shaved, okay? It's going to be fresh, I promise y'all. It may not be the next video, but it's going to be one of my videos, y'all. All right, be calm, be cool, and collective. Stay frosty. Any other ones? No? All right. Catch y'all later. Bye.